Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Equip series. This is the third in our series on mental health, particularly equipping local church people all around the country, and in Silvia we have tonight as well in Fiji on the topic of men and mental health. Thank you, Chris.
Good evening, everybody. Chris Purdie is my name. I'm related to the other person on the screen. The man we have here this evening, I have known for probably more than 25 years, actually. I don't know exactly, but I was friends with his younger brother, and I heard about this Presbyterian minister in Whakatane from him to start with, and took a little time before I met him, and then we met him in Whakatane on the way to Ohope. And yeah, impressive Presbyterian minister he was. Go forward a couple more years, and I was at a Presbyterian National Church conference, and instead of the debonair Presbyterian minister that I met in Whakatane, what I met was the same man wearing a uniform not entirely dissimilar to one I'm wearing now. And that was something that got me thinking about what does this ministry stuff look like when you wear a uniform, and what was all that about? So yeah, that certainly meeting Ra at that point was one of those times when you start to join some dots together. Fast forward another 5 or 7 years, and I'm ordained as a Presbyterian minister into a military chaplaincy in Linton, and this man who will speak to us this evening was one of the people on the ministry team there, the chaplains in Linton. So he was instrumental in my development and transitioning and onboarding, as they say these days, to what the difference between a parish ministry and chaplaincy in the Defence Force might be. He is an expert in working with young men and couples and all people really. But certainly the time in the Defence Force does lend itself to a male orientated ministry and work. So Reverend Raharuhi Koia is a long-time chaplain and a leader in this field in mental health for all people, particularly for young men, and he's going to speak to us this evening. So welcome, Ra. Lovely to see you again, and looking forward to hearing what you have for us this evening. So yeah. So karakia tātou, let us pray. Lord God, we give you thanks for this day. We give you thanks for Ra's great experience and his willingness to share with us this evening. We ask and pray that your Spirit would meet all those who gather here, and that your Spirit would help us hear the words that we need to hear for the ministries and work that we do throughout New Zealand, working with people, and particularly in this case with men. Lord, we ask the blessing to be upon us and on the work that we do. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Right. Kia ora koutou katoa, kei te mihi kia koutou I tēnei pō. Nau mai haramai ki tēnei kōrero me hauora o ngā tāne. So welcome to this evening's presentation, which I'm excited about because I've been working in this space for quite a long time. And so I want to open with a whakatauki, a Māori proverb. And it speaks really into the many changes that we are experiencing in our world today and in our own lives. And it's one that I've used when I've been working with men dealing with anger management. And it's a whakatauki that lends itself to new beginnings or freshness, new starts. And it goes like this: whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mākina kina ki uta, ia mātaratara ki tai, e hi ake ana te atukura, he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, te hei mauri ora. It says this, cease the winds from the west, cease the winds from the south, let the breeze flow over the land, let the breeze flow over the ocean, let the red-tipped dawn come with a sharpened ear, a touch of frost, a promise of a glorious day. So I use that as part of my entry into having conversation with men, because it does give us an indication that there are different winds that are happening, different stresses and strains that happen in life, and they come from various platforms. And we know that in our own lives, there is a lot of stress for us to achieve, to do things, and constantly in this cortisol city. And it doesn't help regulate our emotions very well. It actually pushes our emotions down. And so one of the key messages is to understand what the pressures are, what the winds are saying to us as men, and how can we interpret those in such a way that we know what they are and then be able to address them. And then towards the end of this whakatauki, it begins with the picture of a new day dawning, a new opportunity, a new pathway being forged towards wellness. So it's my pleasure to lead us in a conversation this evening. Now, I hope this won't be death by PowerPoint. So I'm going to move fairly quickly through some of my slides, and there will be a time later for Q&A. And I do hope that you can bring your questions to this conversation around what it is to deal with, to look at, to smell, to taste, what it means around mental health, or hau ora, as I like to say, for men. And hau ora, it's made up of two words. Hau meaning wind or breath, and ora, of course, is life. And so for me, I think in terms of wellness right across the spectrum of our lives, and which I'll talk about later on from a Māori Te Ao Māori worldview. So let me just do a quick check in. Can everybody hear me well? And is there? Great, awesome. And if you do have a question, we'll try and address that. Now, I'm still getting familiar with the PowerPoint on here, so please bear with me. Let's see. Right, can everybody see that?
It's great, Ra. Just do the slideshow from start, and you'll be away laughing.
Well, I'm not laughing yet, so let me let me just now. How do I get into? Okay, let's maybe go there. Slideshow.
Yep.
Here we go.
Oh, beautiful.
How's that?
Beautiful.
Good. Right. Hau ora ngā tāne. So this is about men, about the way that we see and want to respond to wellness in life. And I guess my sense is that I want to look across the New Zealand context and how that might, how men's health and well-being, what you might be seeing, what you might be noticing, and how it's been manifested. Mm. So to guide us tonight, I have done a little bit of a menu, talk a little bit about who I am, ko waiahau. Then I want to share some experiences from my chaplaincy life I used to have, and some pastoral care and counselling that came out of that work, which has been able to form and shape me in terms of my mahi at the moment. And then, of course, I want to have a look at a Māori worldview using Te Whare Tapa Whā and what that might be able to help us with our working with men, and for ourselves being men as well. And I know there are a number of ladies here with us, so I welcome your comments as well. I've been working in this space for about 5-6 years now, and I have learned a lot, still learning, so I'm not quite an expert, but I do bring some lived experiences, and hopefully with your questions and your experiences that we might be able to weave a mat. As you see in the bottom corners of my slide, I've chosen these particularly. The one on the left, there's some gaps, which to me are a story about some of the gaps that we have in terms of working with men. Sometimes we drop the ball and we don't do it very well, but there is an intention for us to both work well with a male person, and also as a male myself, being able to be the best version of myself. Look at biblical perspective, using 1 Timothy 6 as a stepping stone to look at what, fighting the good fight, what that looks like for us, okay? And then lastly, finish with Jesus as our ultimate role model. And I think that really sums up everything in terms of what it is for a Christian male to work towards and become. So here's a little bit about myself, as just filling in some of those gaps that Chris mentioned. And so licensed and ordained in 1991 and still a Presbyterian minister. I am a senior minister at a small rural parish in Tāne just outside Whakatane, about 12 kilometres down the road. So, but I live in Whakatane with my wife. So 1995, joined with the Army Chaplaincy Corps, and during my tenure with the New Zealand Chaplains Department, deployed twice to Bougainville, then to East Timor, and then twice to Afghanistan. Afghanistan was an interesting space, but I'll maybe talk about that another time. So the first New Zealand chaplain to go into Afghanistan in 2003, and then I was privileged enough to go back in 2010. And on that deployment, we lost a soldier who was crushed by a military vehicle. Sadly, that had such a huge toll on the contingent, but like any contingent on deployment, mission-focused is the priority. So you can imagine losing a good friend, a comrade, and then being able to try and focus on the mission and get through that mission very quickly. So the funeral service was probably about half an hour, and then the body was taken to Kabul. I had a number of wonderful experiences being part of the New Zealand Defence Force humanitarian aid team. We went to Samoa in 2009, and when there was a huge tsunami, being part of the team allowed me to bring both my counselling and my pastoral skills to the fore. Then in 2019, was involved with providing pastoral care to the sailors on HMNZS Wellington, and of course a bit of support to the families that lost loved ones during that eruption. 2023, I did a coaching course, Gender Intelligence, and it was run by Dr. John Gray, who wrote the book Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus. He certainly has done a lot of writing since then, and even before, and talks a lot about relationships and how we can best manage our relationships, looking at both the neuroscience behind that, and that was so interesting. 2023. Then 2018, I was a New Zealand sports chaplain and worked with the Vodafone Warriors Club in Auckland. 2022, I began doing a lot of men's breakfasts because I could see the gaps within our health sector. Lots of overwhelmed by people seeking support with mental health, with a whole lot of stress going on. And so since then, I've been involved with a number of men's breakfasts as a guest speaker, men's groups. The group I belong to is a Pentecostal men's group of about 30 men, meet every Tuesday, and we talk and we discuss and support each other. There are various age groups in that group, from 18 up to 76. And we learn a lot from each other about what it is to be a Christian man. 2024, I did something very interesting, which has become interesting for me. So I went to Winnipeg and spoke at a conference there, the Canadian Institute of Research for Veterans, and spoke about moral injury. Now that's an interesting theme or conversation. And then I went again this year in 2026 to Tasmania and spoke on moral injury with an Indigenous worldview conversation. 2024, kai whakamana, which allows me to go into Waikeria Prison and Spring Hill to support the men within the correction system. And I can't quite see the last line, but anyway. So here's a little bit about my private practice. Pūrākau is what I call our practice. Pūrākau means conversation or narrative. I'm a trained narrative therapist. And I also use IDT, interactive drawing therapy, and then weave a number of other conversations into my engagements. You can see my number at the end, at the bottom of that card, call Dre. So I still have a number of people calling me from within the military. And so I've shortened Padre to Dre. So that's the call sign. If you notice my design, the P represents the story. At the base of the P is like a pearl representing a seed and growing and expanding. And then the C, the yellow C, is about embracing those concepts of growth. The picture on the bottom right is a development I'm working on, a conversation that helps Army or veterans to appreciate not only their career as military, but also how do they transition. So the backpack or the Alice pack on the right is a conversation around all the different components that keep you safe. Well, in the military, we call our backpack or our Alice pack our house. And so within that house are lots and lots of survival gear. And each of the conversations about that survival gear remind or help us to remind us of things we can adapt and use in our life as we transition. The small brown bag on the left of the Alice pack is our 24-hour grab bag. So if we get into trouble, the 24-hour bag has a number of things in it. It has our some small amount of rations to get us through the next 24 hours. It has some protective clothing, bits and pieces in there. So I use that as a way of talking about what do you need to keep yourself well within the next 24 hours? And sometimes that conversation leans into helping a person deal with suicidal ideation. What is it we need to keep you safe? What are your contact numbers that we need to get hold of? What are the medication you need? Who are the significant people that have spoken into your life that we need to also get hold of? So basically that, and trying to write that into a master's program. Okay, let me just quickly go through. These are some of the things my hobbies, self-care. Let's quickly go through these. Okay, so these things that I've been involved with, still doing some of them, not all of them, but things that help me deal with my own self-care. And I think as I've gotten busy, I've really needed to have space in my life to do things that make me happy and to enjoy life. So as you can see, there's a lot of things that I have done and still continue to do. Most of these things, and particularly the Harley Davidson motorbike, which I still have. Okay, my philosophy. Let's have a look at that. So at the heart of my personal philosophy is building relationships where trust, co-authoring, collaboration, respect, and sensitivity are formed and shaped shape my therapeutic practice and relationships. Our lives are lived out of narratives, both good and not so good, that inform us of who we are. My work with men is to co-author the rich and flourishing stories that showcase the best forms of who they are and want to become. In doing this valuable work, my dream and hope is for men that their hopes and dreams are better accessible. I would suggest that this creates nourishing relationships with whānau friends and the wider community. So that's my platform, really. Just a little bit about me. That's the Royal New Zealand Chaplains Department's core side. And then I've worked with a number of groups, organisations within the Defence Force. This one with the 2 and the 1 are 2nd, 1st, they're infantry soldiers. This one is 1 RNZIR who are based in Palmerston North at Linton. And then I've worked with the gunners, the engineers, spent 2 years at Ohake Air Force as part of my cross-pollination or my cross-cultural training. Spent 4 years with the SAS as their chaplain. And then the chaplains fall under the logistics banner. And so that we're lumped with other cores such as education, medics, and lawyers, and what have you. So just a little bit of information about my work. This is a really interesting slide with those 6 slides. And I think what it says to me and represents, there's on the top left-hand slide or picture, we have men walking towards the battle. Men standing up, not lying down, not running back, but taking that risk. And one of the qualities that I've seen in the military and have come to realize that there are certain qualities that it takes to be a man. And I put them down as this: as a protector, he has a purpose, he has pride, he has passion, he has sacrifice. And these are great qualities that a male needs to embrace. And of course, he needs appreciation and encouragement and peace. So that top left-hand picture is the guys, and notice that they're in a team formation. And then as we move down to the next slide, there's a lot of action going on. You can imagine that there is a lot of noise. And often I've found that with all the noise that's going on in the world, men need a space to have some peace, a place to recalibrate, to decompress, because it's dangerous. There's a lot of things that men are challenged by. And as we move down further, there's a picture of two soldiers on the bottom left. But the danger is with that is that you're too far apart. And the thing for men is that we need to be closer to appreciate as opposed to being too far out ahead. And then we lose track of each other. So it's another quality that I think that men need to have other men that are nearby. I call them eagles. The eagles that I have in my life are those men that I have trusted. I know they walk the walk and talk the talk. They are men of faith, and I want to be near them, particularly when I'm going through some challenging times. Top right-hand corner, that slide is about, I think it's vulnerability, but also dangerous. You're out by yourself, and the enemy could be watching you. You're vulnerable. We need to have other men around us to give us that support, but also to be wise. And when we choose our battles, making the wrong decisions can create more havoc. Moving down on the right-hand side to the middle slide, there's again this whole sense of men going off to battle. And what I find in my church and other churches, that there are not enough men stepping up. There are not enough men that are stepping up and facing what needs to be faced. And often in my church, the women are taking on some of those roles. And so I'm working really hard for our men to stand up, get out of the pews and take their responsibility within the church. And then the bottom slide is obviously close contact. There's a buddy system we use. That's the language we use in the military. Who's got my 6? In other words, who's got my back? Who's got my 3 and my 9, which is my peripheral vision, and where am I going? Who's leading me, right? So from a Te Ao Māori perspective, I want to look at hauora from that lens. And as you can see in the left-hand slide, a lot of our stories are told with carvings, and those pūrākau, those stories, talk about challenges, they talk about difficult times, they talk about achievement, and they remind us of those stories that have been forged by our ancestors and those who have gone before us. The slide on the right is about men and women working together in harmony, celebrating the connection. And this is the whakatauki, or the verse that I thought was really interesting. Tama tū, tama ora, tama noho, tama mate. He who stands lives, and he who sits perishes. In other words, calling men to take up the responsibility to get out and put your life on the line, be challenged, but know that you also have support of your eagles or your other men who have got your back. But those who remain seated, they perish, right? And often that can happen because a person could be dealing with depression, for example. And that's really hard to help a person work through that depression and state of mind. So let's just, so tonight I met this young man here. He's on a walk. He started from Bluff on the 1st of March and hopes to complete his walk up to Cape Reinga by the end of August. So he arrived at the Whakatane RSA tonight, soaking wet. It's been raining heavily here. And as you can see, he's an Army veteran. He was a grunt, we call them. They're first line responders, or in the front line. And here Shane is doing this walk to raise awareness to well-being and hauora for people right across the board. And so it was an opportunity for us to bring him into our RSA and to acknowledge him and the work that he's doing, the walk. So he started in March. His dog, sadly, Missy, has has a wound on her paw, so she isn't able to walk with him for another week. But that's his companion. And so, people like this, men like this, are a great example for us as men, who are walking the walk and talking the talk. Te Whare Tapa Whā is something that many of us would be familiar with. Te taha hinengaro, taha whānau, te taha wairua, and te taha tinana. And I've added in there at the bottom of the slide, papatua nuku, just about the earth, the whenua, because this is a great conversation to have with my clients. Where are you from? Nohia koe. Where are you from? Tell me about your beginnings and your land, your whenua. What are the significant noticeable features of the ground? And tell me that story. How did you hear it? Who told you that story? What would they be saying to you right now if they were sitting in the room with you or standing with us? What would they be saying? And of course, I've added rangi nui at the top there in the middle. We're now heading in towards some matariki. So part of that conversation is asking them, what do you know about the galaxy? What do you know about stars that are significant stars? Most will know the Southern Cross, but matariki also has a wonderful conversation about how do we remember our family, how to remember those who have passed on. And of course, within the military context, we're often use those words of the ode, and it's about remembering our fallen and bringing them into our consciousness. And for Tumarama, the stars, they all tell a story. And so having that conversation with people that I've been working with embellishes or enriches the whole conversation around wellness and what that looks like for them. This here is a specific whare nui in the Wellington Museum at Te Papa. Now, I deliberately selected this because it was carved by a man called Raharuhi Koia, one of my whanaunga, who was a great Māori carver. And the thing about the whare nui is that there are stories in the tukutuku, in the carvings, in the walls and panels that tell the story, that hold the story. It's a bit like stepping back in time or stepping into a biblical house where all these rich stories are reminding people of their past, their identity, their sense of how to overcome the challenges, the different wins in our today's setting. How do we manage and cope with that? So that's the reason that I've put this particular carving in, because of that personal connection, but also to remind men that I'm working with, particularly Māori men, but not always, the stories that are within them or the significant places that are really needing to come forward, and reminding them that these are part of your history and identity. So some of the things that I would talk about with my men is well-being of the body, the tinana, to get regular checkups, and that's so important. In 2021, I was working with Ngaiterangi Iwi, and there's a close connection between Ngaiterangi Iwi and Tauranga and Matakana Island. And on the island, there were three men, young men, and they were probably in their early 30s, mid-30s, who died because they didn't put their hand up or didn't get their bodies checked out. And as a result of that, they died at early ages, and which left a lot of sadness and grief for the family and sometimes partners and children. So having those regular checkups are really important for us as men. Moving our bodies, doing things, walking, playing sport, kapa haka, anything that creates that heart rate to get up there is really important. To eat well, of course, we're doing a lot of exercise or working hard. We obviously need fuel, and that's food. We need to have good sleep patterns. Talk about sleep hygiene, what they might look like, and then limiting alcohol and smoking are really important. And of course, you can read the bottom there, why it matters. Moving down, the hinengaro, our mental emotional well-being, the mind and emotions, thoughts, feelings, etc. What men need to do. Talk about stress, anxiety, and low moods. And one of the things I've found about men and having conversations is to start off with words that create action or movement. What did you do? How did you do that? What would you like to do? As opposed to starting off with, how are you feeling? And sometimes until men have some connection with addressing feelings or have a feeling emotional chart that they can identify with and then start getting familiar with those emotions. So for me, it's about, first of all, creating the opportunity to talk about things, but using that word do. How did you do it? What did you do? When did you do it? And then getting into going to the next level down, which is also talking about feelings. What's the feeling around that? How did you feel? Definitely checking in with a counsellor, your GP, your pastor, your mates, and your kaumātua, of course. Practice calming habits, breathing, prayer, mindfulness, etc. And why it matters, it so does matter. For men, we need to have those spaces where you are heard and listened to, where there's empathy, where there is wisdom in the room as well. So the men's group I belong to at Liberty Centre, the Pentecostal Church, I'm one of 3 leaders that bring pastoral care and counselling to those conversations. So a night last year in January, we only had 8 men turn up, sometimes 6, sometimes 4. We had a men's camp middle of the year, and as a result of that, we had an influx. So now we've got 30 men who meet regularly on a Tuesday night. We have a time of worship, an introduction to our speaker, and then after he's spoken, the floor is opened up for wisdom to be brought to the centre of the room, not only for the guest speaker, who often brings a challenge or a testimony, but also for the rest of the men who are listening. The whānau connection is so important for men. It's staying connected with our mates. Isolation is such an easy place to go to, particularly for us men, because we struggle to articulate. We struggle because we're embarrassed. We don't often think quick enough. And so there's all that complex that goes on. But there's strength in relationships, right? We know this, that in numbers we are stronger, we're encouraged. But also men need to help, need to ask for help. We are often struggle to ask for help. That could be because we're embarrassed. I should be able to do this by myself. And often when that's constantly said, at the end of the day, that person or that man often is more broken. And so more work needs to be built around him to support him and encourage him back into a better space. Being part of communities, getting involved in church, marae, voluntary work within the community is such a great way to give back in the community. And often when people are struggling to pay for counselling, I do it for free as part of my commitment to seeing people grow and flourish. And of course, down the bottom there, you see why it matters. Interesting thing I found from John's work, John Gray's work, holding hands as a couple reduces your heart rate. I'm not sure if anybody has heard about that or understands that, but it's interesting, that holding hands, particularly for couples, helps de-stress. Also learned from John that he talks about a 6 to 8 minute hug when your partner is in the stress space, just coming in nice and slow and carefully and embracing her and just saying positive things that it'll be okay, I'm here for you. Just simple things for our men to work on. Okay, Hawaii reflect on purpose and identity. Knowing who you are strengthens this war. Connection with culture, whakapapa, faith. These are all important things for us as men. Spend time in nature. Sometimes during the summer, I take my shoes off, walk on the grass, walk in the sand, walk in the water, just regrounding myself. Having grateful prayers, and just being grateful overall. This is one of the things I use with my men who have got trauma or even who are dealing with anxiety, is finding ways for which they can be grateful for. And often I've inquired to see if they would like me to pray, and then we'd pray a prayer that is similar or works around the things that they've brought forward. Okay, almost there in this space. As you can see, why it matters. Okay, Papatua Nuku. The ground is well-being for us as Māori. It has a purpose, has meaning, has values. What does it do? Well, knowing our connection to the land strengthens our identity. Connection with significant land and sea features and whakapapa tell a story. And often we need to be reminded of these stories because the problem has become front and center, that our prefrontal lobe is fully engaged with other stuff, overwhelmed. And we can't think straight, we can't see things clearly. And of course, for a man, he's a problem solver. So that's where we need to get our minds into control, and coming from that prefrontal lobe, get back into that wise space, that wise head space. Of course, spending time in nature, being out in the garden, connecting with the ground is such great therapy, and having karakia before and after, during and after, is also thanking God for the creation He's provided us, and then why it matters. Okay. Rangi Nui, again, I mentioned Matariki at the beginning. Such a great thing to remember those who have died, learning and teaching. I've been to 2 wānanga in the last 5 days. The first one last week was with Willie Apiata, talking about the stress and the challenges within the rural sector. And one of the things we discovered in while I was in Palmerston North in Fielding, there was a psychologist who came and spoke to the rural sector, and I went along. And what she said, because there had been a high spike in suicidal ideation, and they traced it back to when the government took away the local pubs within that area. So the local pub created a place for men, farmers, to talk and meet and share and be aware of each other. And when that was taken away, it took away that opportunity to look after and to hear to share the concerns, the challenges within the rural sector. Celebrations are so good for us, right? That's all about, what is it now? I'm just trying to think of the acronym. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, right? This is what celebrations bring. They help us to move us, to lift us beyond the state of depression or sadness. And this is what men need, to have places where they can laugh and have fun, to sing, to share, to hear the stories from the older men and celebrate life. And appreciating different seasons, not only the physical seasons, but the seasons in our lives that change. You know, I'm reminded of the Old Testament, Ecclesiastes, and talks about seasons and times that we all go through, and being able to appreciate that each season and time has a purpose and a meaning for us, and for us to capture the wisdom from that, so that then we're able to share that with those around us and who are coming behind us. Planting both food and significant trees to remember, celebrate a certain time is also a good thing, in giving back to Papatūānuku. So we just need ways to connect with the earth, and being able to do that with other men and whānau as well. Okay, I'm changing gears here, looking at a biblical perspective just very quickly. The slide on the left caught my attention, and I think what it says for me, that men need time to go into their cave. They need time to be with God. They need time to reflect. They need time to recharge their testosterone. And that could be watching a movie, playing a game, I guess. But whatever that is, it's just a time where men are intentional about them being in a space where they can rejuvenate. And then on the right-hand side, men need connection with other men. The proverb that I'm thinking of is iron sharpens iron. Men need to be sharpened, and sometimes that sharpening isn't gentle. It can be within men pretty aggressive, but it's there for your good. And so it's being able to temper that sharpening to the person. You want to be careful, and you also want to be appropriate with your teaching and learning. Okay, fight the good fight is the other verse that came to my mind. Paul talks about this: keep the faith, finish the race. It's interesting because the verse before verse 12 says this: but you, Timothy, are a man of God, so run from all things, evil things. Pursue righteousness and a godly life, along with faith, love, perseverance, and gentleness. Then he goes into verse 12. Fight the good fight for the true faith. Hold tightly to the eternal life in which God has called you, which you have declared so well before many witnesses. I just found that so interesting and so deep in terms of what it means for a man, a Christian man, and what that is in calling us to, and being purposeful about that. So fighting a good fight, and the Greek word is argon. It's a struggle, it's a wrestle. It's with purpose, it's with intention, it's with the idea that you're going to flourish out of all that challenge, that you are developing that perseverance for your faith with good actions, good intentions that will be your benefit to you, to your wife, to your children, to your whānau, to the community. And of course, being a man who also wants to improve. And I think that's one of the things that we're all on this journey to improve each day, right? Perseverance and faith, it highlights the need for faithful endurance. from Hebrews 12. So it's such an important part of persevering. And this is what I got from this young man this evening from Shane, the perseverance to walk all the way from Bluff all the way up to Cape Reinga, being persevering. That we know that there's a spiritual warfare, that there's a challenge for men to be men. And Paul talks about to fight the good fight, to proclaim it, to own it in the power of the Holy Spirit. And of course, it has an eternal perspective. To finish the race well. I want to say at the end of my life, I want my children to say that I ran the race well. I want to do that so that I'm an example for them, for my grandchildren, for my family. I want to run the best that I can run. Biblical perspective, your body is the temple of spirit. So men, we need to understand that our bodies are important, that they need to be treated right and properly with the guidance of the Holy Spirit within us. Above all else, guard your heart. The heart in Hebrew thinking includes the mind, emotions, and inner life. Well, we get the word cardio in the New Testament around heart. So that's important for us to get our hearts right. Do not be anxious, but present your request to God. There's a lot of anxiety in our world, our ever-changing world, changes in technology, changing in the patterns for making appointments, getting our vehicles fixed. You notice, well, I've noticed anyway, that you often have to wait a few weeks sometimes. So you're noticing patterns, which causes anxiety. And for men who are already suffering from anxiety, this is an added blow. So I'm encouraging men to find other men to talk to and to pray with and pray for those who are struggling with anxiety. Okay, let's do not join those who drink. Do not join those who drink too much wine or gorge themselves. This is about having those habits and those things that have moderation, being wise in that, being able to do that as a male, say, no, I've had enough. I think I am happy where I am, or not drink at all. I like this last bit here. A cheerful heart is good medicine. And one of the tenets of the SAS is around humor. Humor is such a great thing. It lifts us. And of course, Paul talks about this in Philippians 4, verse 4, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. That a joyful heart helps us to move beyond those challenges that continue to hold us down. Men are expected to care for themselves so they can care for others. And I think this is so important. This is part of the role of a man, of a male, the protector, the provider, all those good things. It's all about caring of others. And sometimes it means sacrifice. And I certainly learned that in the army on those deployments. So when you sign that dotted line, there is possibility that you will have to put your life on the line. So what it said to me was, am I really able to do that? When it came to the crunch, would I give my life for somebody else? And we know someone in the Bible that did that for us in the New Testament, and that was Jesus himself. He shows all those positive traits of being a male. And of course, caring for our vulnerable, our wives and our children are also important. I'm almost there. The creation mandate includes caring for life and life God gave you, creating those opportunities for men to have those conversations around caring for the life that we have and the life round about us. The Lord took the man and put him in the garden to care for it. While this is about creation, the principle of stewardship applies to all God-given responsibilities, including one's own health, body, and life. Okay, in summary, what the Bible teaches about men's health. Your body belongs to God. Avoid harmful habits. Guard your mental and emotional well-being. Care for yourself and others. Steward the life and body God entrusted to you. Look after our bodies. So these principles build a good, stable foundation and pathway for us to be the best version of our lives. Jesus, the ultimate example of health and well-being. This is our model, who served, who gave sacrifice, his purpose, his mission. He had peace in times of trouble, during storms, during times of challenge. He was a protector of people, the vulnerable. He mentored his disciples. There's a great self-awareness that Jesus showed in the Gospels. There's a spiritual grounding, relational well-being, healthy boundaries, emotional honesty, connection with others, resilience under pressure, and compassion, of course. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Cool. So I guess a little bit of Q&A, or clarity, or even challenge.
Oh my goodness, Ra, thank you so much. That was an extraordinary, rich presentation. I love the way you just wove, as you use that metaphor of the rarangi, just weaving this so many different elements together. I love that just beautiful, respectful way that you talk about all the men that have walked this journey with you since you started out as a young man, a very young minister, and now just so much beautiful mātauranga and wisdom that you've brought. And I just feel like, I'm just like kind of receiving this kind of body of work that you've collated for us so powerfully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I've still got the video going. If anyone would like to speak, we'll turn off the video if you'd like to speak more privately. But while we're still running the video, I think there's so much more that we can draw out. Feel free to go if you need to go to bed, but please feel free to unmute and offer Raharuhi a word of thanks or a question, please.
Thanks, Silvia.
I would like to thank you for very well organized presentation. I really admire and appreciate, and it gives me lots of learning to me. Much appreciated. Thank you. I was just picking about few words, specifically like my in teaching journey. Celebration sometimes leads to addiction. So how I was thinking, maybe in Fiji I haven't seen, but maybe in New Zealand and other places, uh, uh, any Biblic teaching is done in like clubs where people go and get celebrate and get addicted and then
Yes.
come back to home and create problem or create nuisance in the community and society. So the places where people generally go and celebrate, specifically pub and club. So
That's right.
something, if it is done, fine. If not, maybe something could be done that can reduce some level of mental health issues in men. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravindra. Yes, you're so right. And so this is part of the pressures and the changing world that we're living in, right? So for me, it's about the celebrations take place in with the youth, well, with the men that I work with, not so much where there's alcohol around because that doesn't help, and that's, I guess that's the world's way of celebrating life. But I think in a Christian context, it's about, we can think of praise and worship. And this is what men in the men's group find helpful, that they're able to celebrate that energy that's there. And it's an energy that masculinity brings. But there's a softness. One of the things I've learned about the Māori warrior is that there's a toughness and a strongness within the warrior. The other side to that is a very gentle and soft male. And I think when we get that right, we're better off for it. We have better responses in our relationships. So celebrations, it's creating spaces where men can celebrate in a good way. So men's breakfasts is what I've used. Getting a couple of mates together and playing the guitar, just enjoying the positive energy that comes without indulging in alcohol and drugs, because that's the life that many of the men that I've worked with have come from. And I want to give them an alternative story, because the story of deficit is front and center, and it has a strong voice, a strong presence with it. And I want to create the alternative, a better way. The other option is to find celebration and support and caring in a space where everybody's well and kept well and safe. But thank you for that comment.
Is there
Thank you
anything that
so
you
much.
could add a little bit more, Rara, around addiction and how you see the journey out of addiction for men?
Yeah.
Yes, Silvia. Oh, sorry.
Ravina?
Okay, yeah,
Ravindra?
I wanted to give some real life example in Fiji, Suva specifically. Friday, Saturday, when after they close the club, men generally out of the club, they create more nuisance in the street, stealing and some robberies, some breakdown and other things happen. So it's not only that the person who is getting involved in activities create mental health, but it also create effect to the whole family. So even in the pastors and some other community leaders, even because I'm meeting frequently with the police personals too, they also feel very uncomfortable. So that's why I was thinking some intervention needed in those clubs, so that we can minimize not only the individual's mental health but other people, those who are involved, or largely I would say at the community level. Thank you. Sorry, Sylvia, I interrupted.
It's all good.
Okay.
I see Jen, you wanted to ask a question, and I want to make a comment too about. Jen, would you?
No, I want to go on a different track. So you finish off this, and then I want to
Okay.
ask you something you said about a male
Yes.
female relationship thing.
Oh,
Thank
great
you.
question. Yes, thank you. So addiction is such a challenging space for the men that I've worked with. What it has done, and it's very clear that it brings disruption in relationship. And I guess the addiction wants to be present most of the time. And connection is often the challenge, because when a person is going through an episode, often they are angry, frustrated, and their prefrontal part of their brain isn't thinking right, because the addiction of the drug has taken front and center. And so part of my work with them is look at that 24-hour safety pack. What is it we need to do that's going to help you to stay well for the next 24 hours until I can catch up with you? What is it I can do with you right now? Is it about talking and supporting you in some way to help you move through it? I find it often hard when the men come to me and they call me and they're high. You can't do any therapy with them, and it's so challenging. So I just say to them very nicely, I appreciate you calling, and it's such a good thing to do, because I don't want to close that door. I want to kind of leave it open so that they can come back later on when they've regained their consciousness or their ability to have a conversation, to come back and have that. So I just say thank you for calling. It's either too late, or let's have this conversation later on when you are settled. Basically something like that. Jen.
Yeah, if everyone's happy to move on to something different, but other people might want to talk more about addiction because it's a really important topic.
Yep, as in, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the addiction is about, for me, it's there's something that's missing, something they're longing for. There's something that hasn't happened, or there's pain there, there's anguish, and they want to avoid it. So a person or the men that I've been working with, want to be well, but they choose the wrong substance. And this is why I think having joy and celebrations helps replace that, because it's about dopamine, right? It's about dopamine that just makes them dopey. and so it's being able to use reverse psychology in some ways to be happy and well in a safe environment. And I think by creating spaces like doing group therapy, creating spaces like men's groups, just having a couple of men around, just sharing and supporting each other, because that addiction is always there. As soon as you go to sleep, or if you can get some sleep, and then as soon as you wake up, it's right there, and it demands are so hard and tough that it creates tension with relationships, as I said earlier. It's a really hard one to work through, but I start with basic things like being grateful for something or things. What do you appreciate? I just went blank there, but it's just finding positive ways and alternatives to the addiction, because it's saying, you need me, and I'm the one who controls this. And until a person gets to a point where they are in control and can manage it better, then they're going to make better pathways. I always talk to the guys about I say to them, first of all, there's no judgment, about me here trying to help you and work alongside you, co-author, to work in sync with you, but we need to have a plan going forward. And that plan is often a small step, taking a small step. Men want to take a big step and go so fast and get into wellness that they often trip up and then relapse. It's so interesting to follow that. Yeah. And so for me, using Te Whare Tapa Whā, that's certainly one model. I have often used the Meihana model. That'll be another interesting framework. Pōwhiri Poutama is another process I've used to help build a conversation using the Pōwhiri model in a therapeutic space.
Just before we move off addiction, just to say that our Equip series in 2 months' time is on the topic of addictions with a beautiful Samoan woman, Helen Schmidt is leading that. So I'm really looking forward to having some more conversation around the addiction. I think addictions is something that we don't really understand very well in the church. It was not part of my ministry training really at all, and I think that's something I'm looking forward to focusing on for that one. But Jen, take it away. You were going to raise this.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Raharuhi, I just noticed a really important phrase that you said to a man: when you notice your partner's under stress, move in slowly. And then you talked about a 6 to 8 minute hug and saying,
Okay.
I'm here for you, so on. Could you do you, could you just unpack that more? Because I think in saying that, I imagine you're touching on the men are from Mars and women are from Venus, and you're giving the guy the signal, move in slowly. That's what I really noticed.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think for a male, when you move in too aggressively, it could be misinterpreted. So talking from my own lived experience with my wife, it's about noticing uh, what she's dealing with and how it's coming out, because sometimes that could be about me as a male, and males really find it hard to take criticism. Um, and so for me, it's about understanding what triggers me before I move in, and getting a sense of peace. And then to embrace is about letting her know that she's not alone, that I'm there for her, I'm with her, and I'm sharing this moment with her. It's not about saying, trying to go straight to a solution. It's about letting my partner know that I'm safe enough to do that in spite of what she might be saying about me or about a situation. So that's kind of how I've approached, because often as men, when there's criticism, we want to either challenge it, get angry, get frustrated, walk away, and that's the old me that is around from time to time, and I'm trying to manage that well enough so that my wife, my family feel safe and know that I am working on it, and I want to be there to support them in those challenging times. Is that kind of where you're thinking, Jen? I'm not sure whether I'm
Yeah,
touching on.
yeah. No. I wanted to know your psychology behind it, because maybe I can put a female perspective on that.
Okay.
Um, when you're in distress as a female, and I just speak for myself, not for all other female, because everyone's different. You don't want to be taken to bed. I'll put it
No,
bluntly. You
no.
just want to be heard, listened to, and I thought really good. You put a time frame on the hug and the
Mm,
talking in their ear. I'm here for you, and I think that's really important, because also that's just really calming down the heightened emotions,
yes,
any whether it's anger or frustration, or whether it's just plain grief from losing your father or something like
yes,
that.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So no, thank you.
yeah. And we notice this in Jesus when, he was in the being questioned, right? Before he was crucified, he remained so calm and so peaceful, knowing what the truth is, because often I've found the cortisol, the anxiety, the frustration, the anger just dislodges the common sense. It's all about the primal brain at the back wanting to have that presence. And I think that part of understanding my wife is about just hearing her and appreciating her,
Mm.
but not listening to the lies that come through. Don't take on board the lies, because you want, as a male, I want to argue the truth, which I think is the truth. But I don't listen to the lies when I feel like, and I hear that doesn't sound true, or that isn't true of me, because then I would sit back and just let that come forward, but don't let the lie take control when she's talking to me or angry with me or disappointed with me. Know what the truth is, that she's not like that. She's actually overwhelmed. Just an overwhelmed situation. So it's just don't take it personally.
But I also
Silvia.
love that aspect of it being a nice, real practical teaching. Like it sounds like you've got just lots of, that goes back to what you're saying about the doing,
Yes.
rather than us, counseling ministry types where it's all just kind of being with and feeling, and whereas you've got the bit more this is what you do. This is what it actually looks like to do mental health.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? Rahanui, do you speak to men's groups outside, away from your home base?
I have done. Just when people have heard about the conversations, and this is what, the beautiful thing about men, when they hear something that resonates with them, they tend to tell other men, because there's a connection. When masculine energy sits with masculine energy, there's something positive that happens. Positive masculinity, of course.
I'm from Hamilton, and I really enjoyed it's very insightful, your talk. And I'd love every man in our congregation to have the opportunity to hear you.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
It's a bit far away from Whakatane.
Well, the thing is, Rihanna, is that I've got clients in Hamilton. We often Zoom, but I'd love to come through and talk with the men. There's a presentation I do for men and women, but we can focus on men. It's called Practicing Safe Stress.
Oh, yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The men would love it, and so the couples, because they can see, then identify that we're living in a changing world, and that cortisol just diminishes our sense of identity and brings a different person out. And understanding that, appreciating each other as a couple or as a male, stabilizes us, gives us a grounding, and helps me.
Is it easy to find your contact details?
Shall I put them in the email?
Yeah, thanks.
Ra can let me know what he'd like to get put out, and if you've got a website. Do you have a website?
No, I tend to. No, I see. This is the thing about working as I do. It's about having conversations face to face, or when I'm in a group, because that's powerful enough. Just having that immediate experience, and with word of mouth going from men to other men, is my platform. Yeah. Cool.
Well, I'm going to close the recording now. We've still got a bit more time, but if anyone would like to speak off the record, literally, but I do just want to finish with that word of enormous thanks, Raharuhi, for your ministry and for your leadership, for this real servant heart that you're bringing out and showing and sharing with us tonight.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.